Gardoms Edge, Baslow, Derbyshire. It's sited on an area of very early human activity, and it's ranging from the mesolithic rock art from up to 10,000 years BC to Iron Age roundhouses, and it was named after a blacksmith apparently from the Chatsworth estate. These uneven ditch marks may be signs of 18th century coal mines known as bell pits, but I'm not sure. There are some on the moors. This may be evidence of them. The remains of a Bronze Age ring cairn, which had a similar purpose to stone circles, was possibly used to hold ceremonies. Now these are clearance cairns, possibly from the Neolithic, early Bronze Age, and the people use them to clear the land for crops. Some cairns might even be funerary, as on Big Moor. Clearance cairns can be found worldwide wherever early organised agriculture has been practised. Catstone rocks. This gritstone rock was quarried in the medieval times onwards, and it was used to make millstones, grindstones and building stone, and I suspect it was used earlier, looking at the broken grinding stone I may have found. Now this might be one of the many roundhouses on Gardoms Edge. There are between 20 to 30 recognised hut or roundhouse structures in the area. It's said to date from the late Bronze Age. They comprise a circular bank of stones with an entrance marked by a pair of much larger boulders which would have framed the entrance, and they'd used timber posts with wattle and daub for the walling with thatched or animal skin roofs. Small pits have been found which contain burnt bone near the centre of the building, and excavators originally thought it would be a half, but it was later found it had been recut several times, and the pit had more burnt bones and was in fact related to cremated burial practices. These three small cairns stand on the southern end of Gardom's Edge, and the conical stone heaps have been added to by climbers and walkers for years, and have become known as the Three Men of Gardom. They say they were built as memorials to three shepherds who died in the snow. Others say that the three drunken priests who perished after losing their way. But more interestingly, beneath them lies a much larger and older barrow, a low circular mound composed of rounded gritstone boulders. The location and form of the mound is typical of many late Neolithic, early Bronze Age barrows in the Peak District. There has not been much excavation here. However, the longer history of research on barrows and cairns in the region does provide a few clues. Over 500 barrows have been identified across the Peak District, the majority established during the late Neolithic. All are circular mounds of earth or stone, often associated with features such as curbs, sits and rock-cut graves. Many of these sites were excavated during the 19th century by Thomas Bateman, a local antiquarian of note, and since then more detailed recording has added much to the general picture established by him. Contemporary evidence suggests the barrows were raised over the remains of the dead, but these places may have held a varied significance for people of the time. They were sometimes begun as open areas for the exposure of bodies, and many barrows were built and elaborated over long periods of time, including secondary burials long after the mound was first constructed. And it does seem that many served as an important point of reference for certain family lines. There were places at which the dead could be remembered and honoured, where the bones or ashes of later generations could be laid to rest alongside their ancestors. There are also places where the living could renew their links with the past and seek the help of their ancestors. The other noticeable feature is a spectacular view to the west. Now this vista must surely have been important to the decision to build a barrow here, just as it was for more recent generations to erect the piles of stones on top of it. There are several examples of rock art at Gardoms Edge, but the best known and largest is a grit stone slab bearing cup and ring marks that was discovered covering an excavation of a large cairn. Now this polyester resin and fiberglass replica stone has been left on the moor since 1996, but the original was buried to protect it from erosion. Other smaller mark stones found on the moor can now be seen at Sheffield City Museum. The design consists of a series of cup and ring marks with a small spiral and two circles that enclose a multiple of cup marks. The current consensus of the dating is confusing, but could date to the Mesolithic or even the Neolithic. Based upon associations with material found in the vicinity and designs on pottery, it has been inferred it may have been reused in the Neolithic cairn, as often happens. However, this only dates the timing of reuse and not the actual carving of the rock itself, so it could make it much earlier. No one really knows what meaning was attached to the carvings of these stones, or to the act of the carving themselves during prehistory. One theory is that they seem to line the route towards important monument complexes. This suggests that some mark stones were places that were visited from time to time by people on the move, often difficult to find places, so we use like a map, I suppose. Are the carvings representative of the real world, or were they shamanic trance visions, is another thought. Perhaps the carvings at Gardoms were produced and returned to by generations of herders and hunters who passed this way as part of their seasonal route. Or was it just graffiti done by a bored shepherd? With prehistoric rock art, we're left with more questions than answers. Now this is a jewel in the crown, in my opinion. The single standing stones or monoliths are uncommon in the Peak District. You've got Wirksworth monolith, Maney Stones Lane monolith and Gardoms Edge. They're the only ones that I know of. It is likely the stone is from the same time as the rock art, the Mesolithic, and it is made of millstone grit, which is typical of the area and seems to have been selected for its triangular shape. Gardom's Edge is such a high moorland, so due to this position, patches of it could have been free of woodlands, allowing clearer views of the standing stone in the Mesolithic Neolithic period. The north-facing side is rather flat, with only markings caused by erosion from rainwater. In 2015, a paper was released after a study, and they strongly believe that the standing stone at Gardom's Edge could have been astronomically aligned, marking the passage of seasons during the year, and could be described as a seasonal sundial, but not intending to mark local time during the day or exact dates during the year. More like the seasonal shadow casting allows the stone to display cosmological knowledge such as the death and rebirth of the sun, leading to solstice ceremonies, which means that the north-facing side will always be illuminated on the day of the summer solstice, and it will extend the illumination period to several days before and after the solstice. And the seasonal sundial indicates the winter half of the year by having its north face side casting a permanent shadow. and only after the equinoxes will the north side become partially illuminated during the morning and evenings. Within the British Isles there are only two possible other examples of intentional use of shadow patterns found at Newgrange and Clava Cairns in the northeast of Scotland. It is challenging to rule out chance alignments, but the presence of the packing stone strongly indicates intentional erection, and the stone is highly unlikely to be a glacial erratic, since it is typical of the local bedrock, and it has a highly angular shape of the stone strengthens the choice of the stone towards its specific use. Also, the study of erosion of the gritstone allows for the possibility that the standing stone at Gardoms Edge was astronomically aligned during the late Neolithic. This standing stone would have represented an ideal marker for seasonal gatherings. Now this is one of the most intriguing features at Gardom's Edge, and it consists of an east-west row of pits cut into the ground to a depth of about 28 inch and carefully lined with clay, which still holds water when it's wet. These pits are thought to have been dug in the Iron Age, and it is possible that the alignment had some ritual purpose. They may have been used for ritual cleansing of objects. In 1998-99, excavators certainly didn't regard these pits as being connected with livestock grazing, as suggested by some. There we have Gardom's Edge enclosure, or Meg's Wall as it's called. Now Gardom Edge and Crackcliff Rocks at Robin Hood Stride represent upland causewayed enclosures, both previously identified as Iron Age hill forts. A detailed recording of the site has been undertaken, together with small excavations carried out to clarify its form, and it is partially overlain by Bronze Age cairns and field systems, which show it was there before the Bronze Age, proving it is a Neolithic enclosure built around between 8000 and 4000 BC. It measures 600 metres in length, with varying width between 5 and 10 metres, and there is approximately 7 entrances to it. It is thought to have been formed like a seasonal meeting point or ritual site for local inhabitants and travellers during the Neolithic, and theories that it was used as a trading centre supported by finds of flint, stone, tools and other things from the area. It is thought it was never a settlement site, despite stone robbing and the fact that much of the wall lies within birchwood and covered with bracken. The site is still impressive for its sheer size, but it is puzzling why the Neolithic population felt the need to use so much stone to create this monument, and you can only guess at the number of man hours and amount of people involved and how many years it would have took to construct it. Right, feel free to like, share, comment or even subscribe if you want.